The Curate's Egg, Ashraf Ali Thanvi, Part 15, Deobandi Pederasty, The Beardless Simulacrum, Part 1.
Made a person a Khalifa of him. You know, Khalifa, that he has given ijazah to him to make bath, to take bath of others. That Khalifa once came to him traveling to Thana Bhavan and came along with his child and presented that child before Hazrat Maulana Thanvi, that I have brought this child in order to seek dua from you about this child. Please make dua for him. Hazrat Maulana Thanvi Rahmatullah Alayh made dua for him.
Welcome to this episode, the 15th part, and here I will deal with a very controversial, emotional topic, the topic of pederasty stroke paedophilia. Now, the clip that I've given you is, if you watch the full video, clearly not talking about paedophilia. It's clearly not talking about the predation on young children. What it is talking about is justice in relation to paying for a train ticket. But the reason why I bring that clip is to show you how Ashraf Ali Thanvi regularly had young children, boys, brought to him. And this, coupled with the fact that he had exercised caution and warning against being in the company of young boys, suggests that this issue of paedophilia stroke pederasty is a problem amongst the Deobandis, and you can judge this for yourself. Now, the reason why I'm doing this in two parts is, in the first part, I would like to set the groundwork for where I take my sources from in the study of paedophilia. Now, the first source, and the one that I basically read and tried to absorb the material for paedophilia, was work by a man called Tim Tate. And Tim Tate wrote a book called Child Pornography and Investigation. This was published in 1990, and if one takes the effort to read this book, and this book is available in libraries, but in my experience, to access this sort of material, it's not readily available on the shelves. So the library that I went to actually had two departments. One department was available for the public, and another one was books that were had to specifically be requested. And in fact, what this book here was actually available in the library for public consumption after special request for it. You had to make an appointment, and you were observed as you read the book. Anyway, that's where I take the source for child pornography stroke paedophilia. Another work that Tim Tate did was this book called Children for the Devil, Ritual Abuse and Satanic Crime. This is also known as SRA, Satanic Ritual Abuse. Now, I'm not claiming Ashraf Ali Thanvi is satanic, but there is a religious, supernatural dimension to this form of predation on children. So these are the two sources that I looked at initially. Thereafter, there is this documentary, and it's by the documentary filmmaker Louis Theroux, and he talks about A Place for Paedophiles. And this was an experimental hospital in which there were many paedophiles that Louis Theroux interviewed. And the one clip that I want to bring to your attention in this documentary is the clip of a man who is a convicted paedophile, but he states pretty much exactly what Ashraf Ali Thanvi states, which I'll show you in this part or perhaps the next part, that the idea of gazing upon young men. So he had young pictures of young men, children, on his cell wall, and his desire was simply gazing upon them. But what happened is his desire for gazing at pictures of young men actually translated to physical predation of those young men. Now, we have instances of Ashraf Ali Thanvi displaying this in his literature, and you have here Taqi Uthmani showing you the means of how he would do that. These young children were literally brought to him on a daily basis. Another source that I will look at is the thesis by Professor Brannon D. Ingram, Deobandis Abroad, Sufism, Ethics and Polemics in a Global Islamic Movement. He mentions on page number 55 this issue of the Mawlid, and he's talking about gatherings in which sweet-voiced boys singing fabricated tales, bribes and other forms of haram money is exchanged. So what Ashraf Ali Thanvi is doing is he's actually prohibiting this type of Mawlid. He does permit other forms of Mawlid. The only reason I bring this is to show that this environment, pre-industrial India, was a place where young boys were a commodity, and they would be present, they had sweet voices, and they would be present amongst these gatherings and these meetings. Another source that I will look at is an excellent documentary which analyzes Alfred Kinsey's Alfred Kinsey's study of paedophilia. And his study of paedophilia, he would actually engage paedophiles, and he would encourage them to commit this form of abuse. And in committing these forms of abuse, he would document the sort of relations that adults had with young children. Another thing that I looked at was also the work or the infamous story of John David Norman. And this story is actually horrific, and the reason why I bring this to you is to show you how pervasive this idea of predation on young children is. And if you read the case of John David Norman, you will see how systematic and how ordered and laid out this abuse is. This happens both in secular scenarios and in religious scenarios. And a name I'll just throw out, but this name really is horrific. The case of the individual Richard Huckle. This is the literature on this on this material is available for everyone to see, but again, it's something that people don't wish to see because it is so horrific and so abusive. So, just to give you an introduction as to what Ashraf Ali Thanvi has to do with all of this, is we have this page, and it's entitled "The Beardless Simulacrum." And it explains exactly what Ashraf Ali Thanvi viewed in relation to young boys. And it says, "What about Thanvi's desire? Thanvi spoke of his fear of being alone with a beardless young lad, often a simulacrum for the feminine. Thanvi reportedly said, 'I have instructed my disciples not to send a young lad into my scriptorium when I am alone, for I do not trust myself. The result of this is that now everyone in my Sufi hospice abstains from gazing at young lads.' The figure of the young lad, Amrad, as an object of older men's desire was not unique to Thanvi's Muslim traditionalist context in British India. The beardless lad was a widespread figure of homoeroticism and connoted notions of beauty and desirability in pre-modern and modern Islamic contexts." Again, this is clear proof that Ashraf Ali Thanvi had a desire for young boys, so much so that he had to warn people not to bring young boys into his private chamber. Stay tuned for part 2, where much more evidence will be presented.